Every leader has a moment, that quiet pause between I think I can, I'm not so sure. Welcome to Tutum Talk with me, Cara Nance. Together, we'll explore what it means to lead with heart, to build confidence not from control, but from connection. Because your leadership isn't about perfection, it's about presence. And when you trust yourself, your team will too. Join me as we explore leadership in the everyday and beyond. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Tutum Talk. I want to start today by simply saying thank you. Thank you for choosing to spend your time here. Thank you for letting these conversations be part of your leadership journey. My deepest hope always is that something you hear on this podcast meets you where you are and offers even just a small moment of clarity, steadiness, or reassurance that you're not alone in what you're navigating. Because so much of leadership isn't talked about out loud. And today's conversation is one of those things. This episode was inspired by a question that came up in our current 6 and 6 mastermind. And as soon as it was asked, I could feel the weight of it because it's something so many people experience, but we don't always have language for. The question was essentially this: how do you handle a change in a relationship when someone who used to feel like a close friend, someone you trusted, connected with, maybe even leaned on, steps into a leadership role and suddenly they're not as accessible anymore? And your friendship has changed. Now, on the other side of that, you're left feeling hurt, left out, like you lost your friend. If you've ever felt this, I want to start by saying this makes sense. Nothing has gone wrong with you. You're responding to a real shift because when roles change, relationships often do too. And that can feel like loss, even if no one has done anything quote unquote wrong. There are a few things happening at the same time here. First, when someone steps into a leadership position and role, their world changes. There are new responsibilities, new expectations, and often new pressures that aren't visible from the outside. And whether they realize it or not, they may begin to create more space, not because they care less, but because they're trying to navigate how to hold their role. Second, there's often an unspoken boundary shift. What used to feel easy, casual, and mutual now carries a different dynamic. And that can feel confusing and painful because the relationship didn't just change, it feels like it pulled away. I want to be really clear here. The feeling of hurt, of being left out, of missing what used to be, that is real. That deserves to be acknowledged, not minimized. Because you're not just reacting to their new role, you're grieving the version of the relationship that felt close, consistent, and known. And alongside that, there's an invitation here to gently consider, is the relationship gone or has it changed shape? Because sometimes in leadership transitions, connection doesn't disappear, it just becomes less visible, less frequent, less easy. And if we only measure the relationship by how it used to look, it can feel like it's no longer there at all. So, what do you do with this? A few thoughts to hold. First, name what you're feeling to yourself first. Before taking action, give yourself space to acknowledge the hurt without rushing to fix it or explain it away. Then, get curious about the full picture. What might they be holding right now that you can't see? Not to excuse, but to seek to understand. Then consider a grounded, honest conversation, not from a place of accusation, but from a place of care. Something as simple as, I've missed our connection. I know your role has shifted, and I'd love to find a way to stay connected that works for both of us. Something along those lines. And then expand your support system. Sometimes what we're really feeling is the absence of a space we relied on. This might be an invitation to build additional points of connection, not to replace, but to support you. And then finally, allow the relationship to evolve. Not everything is meant to stay the same, but that doesn't mean it's loss. And I also want to name this for anyone listening who has become the leader in this situation. There may be people in your world who you are quietly grieving access to, who miss how things used to feel, and they may not tell you. So, part of leadership is remembering that while your role has expanded, your relationships still matter. Even small moments of intentional connection can go a long way. And at the end of the day, leadership doesn't just change responsibilities, it changes proximity, it changes access, it changes how relationships are experienced. And navigating that with honesty, compassion, and a willingness to see the full picture, that's leadership too. Thank you again for being here, for listening, for reflecting alongside me. If this episode resonated, especially if you're navigating something similar, you don't have to hold it alone. I'm always here as a sounding board. You can schedule time with me through the Let's Connect link in the show notes. And if it feels supportive, we can explore whether one on one coaching might be a helpful next step for you. Until next time, take good care of yourself and the relationships that matter to you, even as they grow and change.
I know you have a lot of options on how you carve out your day and spend your time, and I'm honored that you decided to spend some time here today at Tutum Talk. Remember that leadership, it isn't something that we master once. It's something we grow into, moment by moment. My hope is that today offered you a little more clarity, a little more courage, and a reminder that you're not leading alone. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who might need it too. And remember, confidence doesn't come from having all the answers. It grows from connection, curiosity, and the courage to keep showing up. I'm Cara Nance, and this has been Tutum Talk, exploring leadership in the everyday and beyond.